We're back. Anyway, what I'd like to do now, now that we have a job, which is a well pump on your time, and we have all the material, now we're going to go out to the job. Okay, what I'd like to do is start down the bottom of the well, work our way up the casing and into the basement. We'll stop where it turns into the plumbing in the basement, kind of like a water service, where the expansion tank in this case would kind of be like the water meter. So you can do everything right up to the tank. Okay, the tank, that's where the plumbing begins. All right, let's talk about the weather. You're going to say, well, if those of you haven't done it, it's like, what's the difference? Okay, there's two extremes that can be a problem. One would be in the winter. Now, in the winter, beside it being cold and miserable and the ground being frozen, um, the pipe, if it's left outside, the well pipe, is on a coil. It's probably about, at least a 4-foot diameter coil of pipe. Now, the pipe that you use, I'll write it down. The pipe is, let's see, where'd that go? It's 1 inch, 160 psi pipe. Okay, that's the standard. There is such a thing as a 100-pound test pipe, and it's not very good. Let's make a note of the time. Okay, I would not use it. That's my advice. Somebody I know used to use the 160 into the casing and then underground like 100. Stay away from it. For the difference in price, it's not worth it. So you get this here on rolls. Okay, now I know that probably is other lengths, but that seemed to be the length that I always ended up with. This would definitely be deep enough for most wells, right? And if you have to have another roll, because you only need 100 feet underground, no problem. You'll probably use that up on the next job running from the well casing to the house. Okay, might not be deep enough to go all the way down the well, but you can use it because the pipe does end at the pitless adapter. It's like a fancy elbow, two-piece elbow, and picks up again on the other side of the elbow. So you do have two separate pieces of pipe. All right, but this would be the pipe itself. Now the wire you use, we used to use 12-2 direct burial. I'm not even going to write it down because it might be, I think there's something else they're using now. It's a softer wire, and it could be a 3-wire pump. I never did it, but some well guys, I guess they use a 3-wire pump as opposed to a 2-wire pump. I'm not going to get into the electric, it's not my thing, but there is such a thing as a 3-wire pump. Excuse me. Okay, now let's go into the casing, down the bottom. When you talk to the, before you order your material, you'll ask the well drilling guy, how deep is the well? And he'll tell you 250 feet deep. Okay, so what you should do is add that 250 to the, excuse me, take 5 feet off the top because it's going to be down in the ground because you're going to be running underground into the house, and then off the bottom, like this. You're going to be 15 feet up from the bottom, right? So this would be 10 to 15 feet right here. Okay, so this space here is 10 to 15 feet. That's so the pump doesn't suck up all kinds of dirt and sand and so on. Okay, so you get deduct that. We'll say this 15 feet. And then 5 feet at the top because you're going to be coming up like this and going underground like that. Okay, let's change that color. So, all right. So you knock off 5 up here. So that's 20 off of 250, 230. Okay. So you think, oh, that's good. But here's what you have to do, because other people I've talked to run into this too. The guy that's drilling it, I'm not suggesting they're doing anything nefarious, illegal, but if they are, they're going to say they put down more pipe than that because they're charging based on how much pipe or how much this well goes into the ground. So if he's losing money on the job, maybe he's going to have a magical 50-foot extra depth that's not really there. So here's what you have to do. You have to get some very strong twine and put a good weight on it, like a 3/4 black tea, something at least that much, something with a little weight to it, and go over and as deep as at least as deep as this, and unroll it. Let it go down in the well until it hits the bottom, and you can actually feel it. You know, the string goes slack. If you guys that fish, you can tell when you're what do you call that? Is the sinker's on the bottom, and put a knot on it, right? A little bow or knot or something, and pull it all out, and then get your 100-foot tape if you got one, and measure it and see if it's the depth that this guy said it is. Okay, because you might be trying to put your pump down, and he told you it was so deep, and you're relying on that, and instead of having 10 or 15 feet, because he's cheating maybe 10 or 20 feet, or he made a mistake. We'll just say a mistake. Your pump is like right with my fingers. It's like almost on the bottom. And you're going to have all kinds of trouble with that, pulling up gravel and crap and all kinds of sand, whatever. So always check this yourself. You guys that have put one in, we'll talk about that in class. Let me know how you handle it, or your boss handle it. Okay, so you check it all out. And with that, you put your pump down. Right? Actually, you probably should check it before you even order the material. But you definitely want to check it before you put the pump in. You absolutely have to check that out. Okay, so I started to talk about the weather. Let me go back to the weather for a minute. Now, in the cold weather, especially when you're doing this alone, and I've done a lot of these alone, probably half of them I did by myself. What you do is unroll the pipe to the depth that you want. We'll say it was 230, like I had up here. All right, so 230 feet is a long way. Most of these jobs are in the country. The lawn is big enough. I've never seen it where I was in trouble. Like in the city, of course, this wouldn't work because the yards are too small. You'd be out in the street. But in the country, usually this works out. So what you do is you unroll the pipe, you roll it out in a big loop, you make a 360, and bring it back. So what it looks like would be looking down from overhead. You'd roll, let's say the wellhead is here. So what you do is you roll the pipe out like this and bring it back, right? So this is going to be this end up here with the handle and everything on it right there. And this is going to be the pump, okay? So what you do here is you get this loop and then you put it over your shoulder like this with the pump going into the casing, and you let this slide through your fingers, help it along until you get to here, right? Meanwhile, this loop keeps coming in towards you like that, keeps getting smaller, right? Until the only thing left is this. And you lower the handle in, because you put a handle on the end of it, of course, so you can put it into the casing and lock it in place. It goes into that two-piece elbow, right? Now, here's the thing. In the winter, this pipe is very brittle. Not like it's going to break, but it's very stiff. It doesn't really want to open up. And I remember putting toolboxes and fitting boxes and something heavy on the end so I could roll it out. You know, whatever end I started on, I'd have to put a weight on and roll the thing out. And then just hope it doesn't like slip out and come roll back and hit you. In the summer, it's the opposite. The pipe kind of lays there like a dead snake, and it's hot. It's very hot to the touch. So if it's a sunny, hot day, that pipe will get hot. If anybody's done one here on a hot day in the summer, the pipe just kind of lays there. So you're probably wise to have some gloves. Well, you have some gloves in your truck anyway. Summer's probably better because it's much easier to handle when it's warm. Also, when you put the pipe over the insert fittings, so you get like a block of wood and a hammer and beat them into the pipe, and then put like double clamps on them. But they're insert fittings. When it's cold like this, you might have to even heat it up without melting in the plastic, because the plastic is so stiff when it's cold. Okay, so cold is probably worse than hot, right? But that's how you would do it. Now, again, this is nothing you probably want to do on your own for the first time. You want to do it, you'd want to see it live at least once. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start at the bottom and talk about what we put in first. On the end of the pipe, we have the pump. Now, on page 179, they got a really good sketch of a cutaway of this pump, one of the better ones I've seen. And you notice that at the bottom, they have the motor. And at the top, they have these, they look like little discs. They're about a ½ inch high and like little water wheels, and they stack them up. So a half-horse pump, I don't remember working with a 3/8. Usually a half-horse would be the standard size. And then you go up to maybe a 5/8 horse or 3/4. No, I think it was a 3/4. So depending on the depth and the flow, you'd have, say, a half-horse with maybe 12 stages, these little discs stacked on top of each other. And the more stages, the higher it can lift. And it says it right here, the greater the capacity to lift the water. But the flow rate goes down a bit. The higher you go, the more it's got to work to get it up there. So at some point, you stop adding stages and get a bigger pump. So we'll say a half horse goes to maybe, we'll say 12 stages. And then you switch to a 3/4 horse with 6 stages, and then start building them up. I never got any bigger than, I think maybe a 3/4 horse is the biggest that I did. And there are bigger, of course. Okay, but let's take a look at that sketch on page 179. You got the motor, and you got those impellers at the top. In the middle, and there it is, it says screen, right in the center of this thing, because it looks like a chrome, maybe 3.25 inch diameter, the pump, and it's about maybe 2.5 feet long. And right in the center of it, there's a screen several inches high, goes right around. That's where the water goes in. So if there is some sand and stuff down at the very bottom of the pump, at least it gives you about a foot and a half, maybe a foot and a half before the water inlet takes the water in, which is a good idea. Okay, and the water does its thing, goes up through the impellers, the stage, what they call it, they do call it impeller, the stages. At the top of the pump, well, actually they drew it in there, there's a check valve. There's a vertical check valve, kind of like the foot valve, right? The water goes up, and so the water doesn't all go back down in the well. There's a check valve, a vertical, it slams closed, right? As soon as the water tries to press down back into the well, that check valve picks it up. It absolutely has to be there. Now, I believe, I haven't done one in a while, but the check valve, as I recall, was part of the package that was screwed on back at the factory. We didn't have to put them on. So on the top of that check valve, there's a female 1-inch tap, right? And you would put it would be a 1-inch male by insert adapter in there. So you thread that in, and then you put the pipe over the insert adapter. It's got like barbs so when the pipe goes over the insert fitting, you put like 2 hose clamps. You don't have to put any pipe though, and it makes a good seal. I've never had a problem with it. You always double clamp everything that goes down in the well. Right? You gotta be crazy not to double clamp it. You don't want anything to fall apart. And those of you with boats know that when you got a boat, anything below water line absolutely has to be double clamped. Okay, so we got the pump on. We come up 10 feet, right? So another 10 feet. And right here, we're going to have a thing that goes right around the pipe. This thing here is a torque arrestor. It's right there. Okay? What it looks like, it's about 10 inches high, maybe 10 inches high, and it's 2 pieces of beefy rubber that go right around the pipe. Each half, they meet up, and you put a clamp at the top and the bottom, and you kind of bunch it up a bit. And what it does is to absorb the torque of the motor, because any motor, you all know that, if it torques one way, and it kicks the other way, right? Just like when you're using your hole saw and it binds up, how that, right? Especially if you're using the hole hog, I mean, that'll throw you. That's torque, right? Twist. So these pumps, they will twist when they come on, and the torque arrestor takes up some of that torque. All right, so you should have a torque arrestor about 10 feet up off the pump. Okay, actually above the check valve. Okay, then about every 25 feet or so, like this. This is not the scale, obviously. Every 25 feet. You should have a spacer. Now there's different types. I'll just draw the round one. And what it has is like little openings on little ears on the side, inside. They're kind of like that. Then in the middle, that's where the pipe goes, obviously. And on the outside, that would be the wire going down to the pump, would be on one side. And this would be the rope going down, is like a safety. So if everything else fell off, you'd have a rope to pull it up with. Some guys skip the rope. Again, your call. I've never seen it fall. You use a double clamp. I can't imagine why the pipe would break, but it's recommended that you use the rope. So every 25 feet or so, you have one of these going up. And what you do is tape it with just electrical tape. Just tape the wires and the rope around here, because you don't want it rubbing on the sides of the casing, especially the wires, because then it rubs on like a sharp stone sticking out. Because remember, there's no pipe in here. Yep, forgot to shut the phone off, excuse me. Okay, so you don't want this wire and rope rubbing on the sides of the casing, right? And the pipe too. You don't want the pipe going down, because the pipe doesn't always go dead straight. I mean, it was all coiled up, and on a cold day, it's not going to be going straight down. So these spacers keep it in the middle of the hole it was drilled. Okay, and I think it's every 25 feet or whatever they send you. You just figure out how many they sent, and then do the math, and then space it out as you go up to the top. And what I used to do, and I'm sure everybody else does too, as soon as I come out of the spacer like this, right there, as quick as I can, I pull that wire and rope in and tape it to the pipe on both sides. Okay, and maybe even one in the middle, right? Be very generous with that electrical tape. You might need a few rolls. Okay, and that's it. You go up to the top, and at the top, right here, it goes through the casing. So there's a hole right here that you drill. Now, I told you the guy that I used to buy the well pump material from towards the end of my time, he used to use a cutting torch. And I never saw that before. And he was really good with it. Like I said, he didn't even have to use a template. He just cut a hole and it was the right size. But what we do, and I'm sure you will do, is to use a hole saw. Now, if you've ever drilled one of these, my advice is to drill it first with a 1/4-inch drill bit, and then put the drill bit inside the mandrel, the chuck, and then drill through it. It is tricky to drill, because looking down on it, you're drilling a metal casing, and you've got the you're trying to drill with something like this, and it's arced right here. And it has a tendency, I've drilled a number of these, and beats the hell out of your hole saws. It takes the teeth off like crazy. I guess because it's a curved surface. It's very hard not to trash a hole saw on one of these, right? So don't be surprised. You're going to take the teeth off it. But eventually you get the hole through. Okay, file down any burrs. And there's a 2-piece 90. And the name of it, I used to have one. I think I did a show and tell a few years ago. I don't know where it is now. Anyway, it's a 2-piece 90. It's a very beefy fitting, very expensive. Kind of looks like this. And it actually is cut in half, like right here. No, hold on. That wrong. It is cut in half, but not quite like that. But the halves are right here. Right? So this half, do I have that right? Hold on a second. My brain only works on one side. I can't. I have to do it on this side. Sorry. Now the other half locks. You have the pot with the pipe on it right here, and this is actually closer to the casing. This is just for visual. It's actually over here where it comes down, and the other half of the 90 slides into place so that when you're done, it looks like this. So this half here actually locks into place right there. It's got a rubber O-ring, right? And in the top here, it has a false fitting. It's a 1-inch female adapter, but it's shallow. It's just enough to thread a pipe in. So the pipe would go up the top like that. So you'd have something to hold on to drop it in to lock it in here. So this piece here, just picture this, is separate from this. And the casing for the well is right there. This thing goes right through the casing. And you pick it up in the trench on the other side, okay? And this here is this has a big fat rubber washer, goes right around this, and a big nut like that you tighten up. Okay, so this bottoms out. You put this big nut on with like a 18-inch wrench, and then you go up on top because you don't have this on it yet. You go up on top with this piece on here, and drop it in place. Unscrew this, take this out, and take it with you. Because you don't want somebody just to pop the well cover off and there's the pipe. They just lift it up and steal the well. And I have had that happen. They used to do that in Nantucket. I did a house there once, and somebody stole a pump. Anyway, the way we solved it, we put an underground cover on, so it was we had like a treasure map to locate where the pump was, but it was actually underground, so that it couldn't be stolen again. In any case, this here is a 2-piece fitting called a pitless adapter. I could talk about it all night, but until you actually see one and you're looking at it, just remember it as a 2-piece 90 like that. That actually one piece goes through like this and the other half slides in and locks it in. And then you pick it up on the bottom. In fact, you do that before you even put it down. All of this here, this half of it right here, would be right there. Okay, so this is the pitless adapter. It would be right there, and this is the long arm, the handle. I used to use I found black steel because it doesn't flex like copper. Black steel with a T at the top, so you could hold it like this. And if you drop it, it's not going to disappear. Horror story. Somebody dropped it, and they used fishing line. They tried everything to get down in here to get this pipe that had fallen away, and they couldn't get it. Finally, they gave up, called a well pump guy to come back, and re-drilled it right through all the material, right down into the bottom. I mean, that's not painful. So be careful. What you drop in there is going to stay there. All right, so that's what it looks like. All the ones I did look like this, and I suspect you guys that have done them probably did the same thing. Okay, so you're at the top of the well now, and the the wire, the rope, of course, would tie onto the bottom of. Let me see. I think there's somewhere over here I would tie the rope on. No, I know. We'd leave the rope up at the top, all coiled up inside the well cap. The wire goes right out the top of the cap. So when you look at a well pump, well pipe coming out of the ground. Here's the ground. Here's the pipe. And you see the cap on it, a little mushroom cap like that. And then over on the side, you're going to see a 1-inch piece of well casing. Well pipe goes back in the ground like that. That's not the water. Okay? This here is 1-inch well pipe that was left over, maybe a 2 or 3 foot piece. Usually, of course, this is low to the ground anyway. But this just keeps the lawnmower from hitting the wire because this is just the wire. The wire coming up like this, then into the casing. Actually, I used the wrong color. I meant to use a different color. Okay, so this would be the wire coming off the pump like this, goes up and right out the top, and then back and down into the trench like this, follows the pipe in. So this here, this pipe goes up above ground, right? So the ground level would be, sorry, I got the scale mixed up here. We'll say that this is the top of the casing right here, and the well cover would be like that. So the green wire would go over here and out and down into the trench, and the ground level would be right here like that. Okay, so this would come out and into the ground. So the wire never breaks. The wire is solid. The pipe is in two pieces. It comes up, the pipe comes up and right into the pitless adapter, but the wire comes out the top of the well and back in the underground like that and follows into the trench and goes into the house, because this doesn't matter if this freezes, right? But you do have to put this inside the well pipe to protect it. Okay, so off on the side of the cap, there's a little 1-inch tap off on the side. Now the trench, remember, is about 5 feet down, right? The depth into the ground right here. Don't forget that. Don't want to ever do a job where if it's much less than 5 feet, because it could come back and bite you, depending on the location and wind and everything else. Some places do go that deep in the ground. Okay, so that's about it. That takes care of well pump, putting it down by yourself or with somebody else. Obviously with someone else is a whole lot easier. But still, it's not a bad job. Now, this guy that I told you that had his own company and did this, he could actually do 2 of these a day, which I found phenomenal. I could do one of these in about a 6-hour casual, keep moving day. I could do one of these in 6 hours. Now, that's the first part of the job. And also, when you get to the foundation, you drill 2 holes, one for the wire and one for the pipe, the water pipe. The rope, you remember, is back under the cap, back at the wellhead. What you would do is drill a hole through with the 1-inch well pipe and seal it with like Vulcum. Vulcum is really good stuff. Vulcum or water plug, I don't know. I'm trying to remember now. It's been so many years, but I would use Vulcum. It's a really good adhesive. It's good for filling like cracks in foundation walls. And now I've been told by somebody who knew more about it than me that there's something better than Vulcum. They sell it at Humphrey's Lumberyard in Tiverton. He had the Vulcum, but he said this one is better, something newer. And then you have the other pipe, the wire that goes through the wall. You put the wire again in a piece of well pipe, stick it out a few inches on either side, right? Actually making a sleeve. The wire goes in the middle, and you fill that pipe with like Vulcum, and on the outside and the inside, because you got to seal where the wire is going through. So you got to make sure you got a good seal there. Now you got the wire and the pipe in the basement. Okay, this is where we're going to pick it up. Now, I don't know if I can do this in 5 minutes, but let's see. Okay, you got the expansion tank. This is your X-Troll tank, and it's got a hole right here. Now the tank that you can't see is all of this here. And inside it's got a diaphragm, just like the expansion tank on a boiler. And it's got a diaphragm that goes like that. And then when the pressure hits it, the diaphragm would like come up here, right? It would compress the air. I don't know just where it is in the tank. I think it's down towards the bottom. So you got, I don't know. But the diaphragm moves back and forth. Remember, the reason for the diaphragm in a well pump like this, X-Troll well pump, and the tank on a heating system is so that the water and the air don't touch. Because if the water and the air touch, the water will absorb the air, and within a year, the expansion tank is waterlogged. And the old ones were designed to actually recharge them every year. Some of you might have done that, although I don't think there's too many left out there. You have to like drain all the water out to get some air back in the tank. but these have a diaphragm. Very, very clever design. So these are not require no servicing at all. If they ever get waterlogged, just replace it. So this here would be the water coming in like this would go to here, and the water going out would go over like this. And this one is very simple. It goes up. You have a boiler drain, right? Little 1/2-inch boiler drain, so you can draw some water off if you want it, right? And then over here you would have a shutoff, right? And the shutoff, I guess you could put it here. You want to put another shutoff there? I guess you could. Probably a good idea. Let's put one here. All right, this is optional, of course. So is that you really only need one shutoff. Okay, so water goes in like this and out like this. Okay, now there is a very special fitting that goes in here. It's a 6-way fitting. And I'm going to draw that alone. I almost forgot the name. It's called a tank cross. Okay? Now looking at it from above looking down, we were looking at it from the side. Looking at it from above looking down, it's a very busy fitting. It looks just like a T. It is a T. And it goes up like this. And it threads in. It's 1 inch. All right. And it's 1 inch on the ends. So we have here the inlet right there. Okay, water going in. The outlet right here going out. Okay, and this goes into the tank. Now there's a skirt on the bottom of the tank. That was that hole I showed you drilled in there. And if you looked in that hole, in the middle of the tank, there's an elbow welded onto the bottom of the tank that this threads into. So this goes into a 90 that's going straight up, right? So I can't really draw it too well here, but that's a 90 going right into the tank. So you got 3 of the outlets on this. There's 7, I think, altogether. All right, so what else we got here? We got this one here. We got this. And we got 2 on the front that are looking like, from where we're looking, they're looking down. One's a boiler drain, right? In fact, very much like the one that I used as a up on the pipe above the tank, going up alongside the tank. So this is a boiler drain right here, 1/2 inch, right? You thread that one in, and this here is a pressure relief valve, a little tiny one, a 1/2 inch pressure relief. And I think it's set for 75 psi if I remember right. Right, but it's standard. So this is where that goes. This tap is for the boiler drain. Now we got 2 up on the top of this. Is again, we're looking from above down. So when you're looking at it from the side, these are sticking up in the air. So one of them is right here. We'll put the pressure gauge. 100 psi. Right? Goes right there. And the last one right here is the pressure switch. The only one I've ever seen is a square D, letter D. And that goes right here. Right, so the pressure switch, I'll circle this, goes right here. Okay, so there you go. Now you know how to put a well pump in and make some money. Make some good money. All right, so you get 7 taps. Inlet, outlet to the tank, switch, pressure gauge, relief valve. one thing I left out. This pressure switch is a female, and so is that. So what you need right here is a 1/4 brass nipple, so that this switch actually sits on top of this pipe. It's up in the air. It's raised up about 3 inches or so. Okay, brass only. Galvanized corrodes. I've seen it happen, and the pressure switch becomes isolated. So use brass, and that's what they'll send you, I'm sure. Okay, that's it. I will see you guys back in